What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. If you're new tuning in, thank you for joining. This is the Athletes Resilience Center podcast, where we talk all things mental performance in sports. Today's episode is all about leadership, what it actually looks like inside of a team, how it gets developed, and why it doesn't just magically happen when someone gets named captain. We have on Tex McQuilkin. Tex is the founder of Captains and Coaches, a leadership development platform focused on building stronger athletes, captains, and coaches through intentional culture, accountability, and emotional intelligence. His mission is centered around raising the standard of leadership in sports and giving teams real tools that extend beyond the game. Tex also hosts the Captains and Coaches podcast, where he sits down with elite coaches and leaders, including high-level college programs, to unpack culture building, team dynamics, and the mindset required to lead at a high level. With over 15 years of coaching experience, Tex bridges the physical performance gap and leadership development gap in a unique way. From being a 4-year starter and 3-year captain in college, to coaching at the collegiate level, to working with high school programs and building leadership systems for modern athletes, his perspective is rooted in lived experience. In this conversation, we dive into where athletes miss the mark with self-awareness, how to build confidence that isn't just outcome dependent, why intention matters just as much as intensity, how to develop captains with actual leadership reps inside of practice, and what it takes to build a culture that lasts beyond one season. If you're an athlete, coach, or parent who wants sport to actually develop stronger leaders and more resilient people, this episode's for you. Let's get into it. Tex, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and give some quality content to our listeners and viewers. How are we doing today?
Incredible, man. Friday, and I got lacrosse game tomorrow. So pre-game practice tonight, which is always fun, followed by a team dinner, and then we get ready for Saturday.
I love that. That's awesome. We'll jump right into it with the podcast format like we always do. I'm going to put the ball back in your court. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and kind of go through your journey on how you got to where you are today.
Cool, man. It's been a long road, very fun, and Tex is a nickname that I picked up, and then every job I've ever had since has been through a relationship and connection to somebody that knew me as Tex. But it did start in Katy, Texas, small town where football was life. And shout out James Vanderbeek. Varsity Blues, if you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good representation of the culture that I grew up in. If you've seen Friday Night Lights, the movie, also very in line. Man, I love that one. If you've seen Friday Night Lights, the TV show, high school is not that dramatic. And I can say that because I live in a town it was filmed in now called Dripping Springs, and I coach those high school kids. So complete dramatic misrepresentation. I did personally watch 3 episodes, and then episode 4, there was no football game. And I was like, what am I doing here? I got sucked into this soap opera. I had to get out. So I haven't seen the TV show past episode 4, but I all that to say, I digress. I grew up playing your sport, running as fast as you can, and started lifting weights in 6th grade. That's just what I knew. And everything you did was socially, physically, practice-wise, you ran track, you played football, you lifted weights. Everything was going to lead up to you being on varsity football. I say that because guess what? As a junior in high school, me and my boys, we did not make varsity football, and that's like social suicide. It was a heartbreaker, and unfortunately, our high school coaches, they decided to take our sophomore class, put them on varsity so we could compete against the crosstown rival who wins the state championship at the highest level, 6A here in Texas, every single year. They did that in a transactional way. They told the boosters, hey, we're going to put these kids on varsity. They're going to play 2 years, get their butts kicked for a chance to compete in year 3. What those coaches did not see coming was Andy Dalton, future NFL quarterback, TCU, Horned Frog, phenomenal player. Needless to say, we got our dicks kicked in 60-0. They made a bet, and unfortunately, they neglected my class. Decided then, like we knew we were leaders, we knew we were winners, so we took our performance into our own hands, and we started a lacrosse team, a bunch of 16-year-old dudes that knew nothing about lacrosse. No one was from the East Coast. No one brought the sport to us. It was just like, hey, that sounds fun. That looks awesome. It's physical. I mean, we watched the Final Four, the championship on ESPN, and then that summer we just went all in. We found out there was a Houston old men's league, so a bunch of dudes show up to men's league and like, hey, we're starting a team. Who wants to be our coach? And fortunately, there was a character, a dude from Long Island, phenomenal man, and he just volunteered his time for us and changed the trajectory of my entire life because this was a transformational coach. He believed in us for no reason. Just a great personality, great dude. And lacrosse did so much for him as a man growing up in Long Island that he wanted to give that gift to us. And he understood our story and our situation where, dude, football didn't want us. So now we took on this responsibility. From there, I was very fortunate. I got the opportunity to go play ball on the East Coast. That's where I picked up the nickname Tex as the only kid from Texas. I mean, this is 20 plus
Yeah.
years ago. Not a lot of guys were going from Texas to go play in college. Now the sport is taking over the state, and I'm glad I could be a part of it. That team we started in Katy 20 plus years ago, 24 years ago, it was 2002, is still there. So I can't tell you how many lives, I mean, have been impacted by a bunch of just 10 rambunctious dudes that were
Yeah.
not willing to accept what somebody told us about ourselves. And now coaching in Austin and still aiming to grow the game and apply a lot of my knowledge there. So was a 4-year starter, 3-year captain. I was a linebacker with a stick, fish out of water. All I knew was lift weights, run as fast as you can, and play your sport. So continued to train like I was a high school football player. In lacrosse, there's no strength and conditioning, culture. Dudes that play football and lacrosse lift weights because it's just part of high school. And now if you go to college to play at a higher level, you get a strength and conditioning coach, which is amazing to see. This wasn't part of the game. And I'm sure it's similar with baseball. Oh,
Definitely.
hey, don't lift weights. It's going to affect your swing.
Right.
Right. Even though, whatever. So I digress. I was still continuing to lead in the way that I knew how. And that was just by example. I'm just going to show up. I know I'm the worst kid on the team, but I got a great attitude and eventually gained the skills to then meet where I was at with my leadership skills and abilities. And my coaches, they gave me an opportunity. My freshman year, I broke my leg. So I had a 5th year of eligibility. And I mean, I was part of this team. I was helped build this program from a down year and then created the possibility for grad school. I wasn't the best student, but athletics opens doors and then gave me an extra year of grad school. I didn't foresee myself going there. And that's where I truly learned how I like to learn. Instead of just memorizing a bunch of stuff and taking a test, now it's, hey, what do you think? Let's read this and let's talk about it. So that started to really just unlock a lot for me and my potential as a student and just a learner of strength and conditioning, of people, of a game. And my master's degree was in health behavior change. So getting people to do what they don't want to do. Well, it was all the case studies were, cigarettes and parking your car the farthest away from the store or your office or whatever, so you get extra laps, and bored. So I just took the tools that I was learning and was applying it to my athletes, trying to get them to gain a connection and build buy-in with this program. So that turned to grad assistant coach, and then I was a coach with Marymount University for 3 years, and that was my first coaching opportunity. And finding this connection in vocation that I had. Needless to say, these are a bunch of Division III athletes. They weren't strong enough to hurt themselves. I had 3 years to learn how to coach, learn how to communicate, learn how to teach barbell movements to athletes that have never touched a weight before in their life. That was very valuable time. If I had video of me teaching kids to deadlift for the first time in their life, I would kick my own ass. I was terrible. I know exactly what I was saying, the cues and directions. And now I look at it now and I'm like, dude, you're fired. So it took me 3 years to learn how to coach, but fortunately I was working with a bunch of athletes that weren't strong enough to hurt themselves. And that was still just rich and valuable time. Paired with this, I was coaching sport and just took on the strength and conditioning responsibilities. And I was also recruiting. So going out to Philadelphia, going out to South Jersey, going up North Jersey, Pennsylvania, all around Virginia, Maryland, DC, recruiting kids for our university. And I was going to clinics and camps and travel tournaments, recruiting dudes that have been playing a hell of a lot longer than I have. I started at 16,
Hmm.
played for a year and a half, 18 months, and went to go play in college. I was well behind. So I felt imposter syndrome like, dude, I can't connect with these guys. I don't know. They're much better than me right now. What am I going to do for them? And so lean back into the weight room of being like, okay, you have a lot of potential. I see this, or we can really put some meat on your bones, some frame, some armor, and turn you into something else. So during recruiting would speak to the value of training and athletic development and all the different things that, hey, I knew that we were doing at our school that nobody else was doing at the Division III level. So started to really gain confidence in this. And then, I mean, there was defining moments that I'm thinking of right now in my career where I was pitching performance versus lacrosse. And
Yeah.
that meant a lot. And along the way, the actual athletes I did have, I was making a ton of mistakes, as I said. And then there was one injury that did change the trajectory of my entire career. And we had a fitness center on campus, barbells. I brought barbells my freshman year. It was an assistant coach on the team that I was also coaching at our local high school. Basically got in his truck. We got this old rusty squat rack. We got barbells, brought all equipment that his high school discarded and brought it into our fitness center for the
Hmm.
first weight rack at Marymount University and started to train in there. So we had this weight rack old, but I had to train 40 dudes. So we were aiming to
Yeah.
get creative. We needed upper body strength. I knew that. So what I asked my athletes to do was kick up into a handstand against a giant wall that we have on our back field for wall ball practice. And a senior, he kicked up and he fell down. And I run up to him because the only coaching I know at this point is Texas high school football. So I'm MFing, get back up. What are you doing? Dude tore his rotator cuff. He couldn't get back up physically. I did that to him because I didn't know what I was doing. He thinking it, maybe we could have walked back up because that would have been a safer to get into an overhead position. Dude, I felt raised Irish Catholic, Marymount's a Catholic school. I just felt so much remorse for this moment where I took this dude's last year of lacrosse away because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So now this is December 2009. I didn't have a lot of money. I was grad coach at this point. My career was over. So I had to get on the internet. I had to find out. I had to find mentors. I had to reach out. So then found two men. I flew out to California. I spent 2 days with them and just cracked the bone and sucked the knowledge out of the whole situation. I was the most active person asking questions. What's going on? Hey, what about this? A lot of people were there to that weekend with them to selfishly learn for their athletic abilities. And I was one of the
Hmm.
few people that was thinking through the coaching lens. Okay, how do I apply this to this team in this particular moment? Fortunately for me, all the questions that I asked those guys made me memorable. And later in my life and career, they would hire me because I was that memorable in that moment. So I took that knowledge from them on that 2 day experience, applied it for those 3 years at Marymount. And from there, I made a career decision. I'm a hell of a better strength coach than I am a sport coach. And I went across the river to Georgetown University to be a strength and conditioning coach for men's and women's lacrosse. And then anyone that's a strength and conditioning professional knows that if you're on the Olympic side of things, non-football, you just get handed a bunch of teams that you never played before. You don't know what the hell's going on. So I take on the crew team, and I'm a land animal. I'm 5'7". I got a negative buoyancy. Keep me out of the boat. Keep me out of the water. And so then took on the crew team, and I had a great relationship with the head coach there. And we talked about athleticism, and that was our goal, is to take these recruits on campus and turn them into athletes that just so happened to be in the boat. And she loved that philosophy, and she would train with us. And that really helped me now gain some social intelligence, communicating athletics and athleticism and training to now, yes, men lacrosse players, the Division III level, we're not training sport, but now women's crew team, a weight class sport. They can't put on a lot of weight because that's going to change their weight class because there's different weight classes. It's going to change their performance. So now, okay, how do we target this and manage that? And now I got to gain buy-in from these girls that are scared of weights because they don't want to put on weight. from lifting weights, and they don't want to get bulky, all that crazy stuff. So I had to navigate this social intelligence of being a coach and building buy-in, knowing, how hard it is to put on muscle, all that
Yeah.
stuff we're familiar with now. And then there was also the lacrosse side of things, because I was operating under the assumption, dude, I worked hard. I'm type AA. No matter what, give me a task. I'm going to go 100 miles an hour. Tell me to go run through a wall. I'm going to ask you how many times. Or my dog's moving my camera here, Pearl. So now I was operating on the assumption, dude, these are Division I athletes. They're on a scholarship. They want to be here. They're going to kill it. No, no, they don't value the weight room. Dude, I just want to go ball. Why do I have to lift those weights? I can shoot the ball faster than anything. That's heavy. Every Kenny Powers quote of all time, I had to live that experience. So now I had to
Yeah.
gain and build buy-in from these dudes that didn't just the gift came so naturally to them. And it was also a great transition period for the program, the university. Now they're a top 5. At the time, they were not. They just hired a brand new coach who's still there. His name's Kevin Warren. He's an amazing coach, amazing leader. And his mission was to change the culture of the program. So guess what our fall was in strength and conditioning? It was, let's see who wants to be here. And that's a very polite way of saying, hey, run these guys into the ground to make
Yeah.
sure that they are going to give everything they got, and the athletes next to them, the dudes next to them, can trust them. Yes, sir. So that was a fun experience, dude. You're connecting with kids that don't want to be there. Coach is asking you a lot of different things, and you got to track the miles, you got to track the steps, you got to track the weights, you got to do all this stuff at that Division I level. And it was just so much fun. And Coach Warren is still there. And at the college Division I level in any sport, you're either there for 3 years or there for 30. And they got the right man, the right fit. And now it's a top 5 program. And it didn't start that way. So it was just a rich experience for me to go full strength and conditioning coach and be a part of the base, the foundation of that program that's still going strong today. To fast forward a little bit, there was an eventual point in my career with Georgetown where I hit the ceiling. I wanted more responsibility, but they didn't have anything for me. And it's
Yeah.
just the name of the game. They only have a set amount of head full-time coaches. I was there managing a gym in Washington, D.C. and doing this to make ends meet. So then it just reached a point, dude, I was so frustrated with the collegiate strength and conditioning profession that I just threw it all away. And I reached out to one of those 2 men I spent time in California. His name's Rafael Ruiz. And I was just like, dude, teach me. And if you've seen the Doctor Strange movie, the first one, it's that same experience where it's just like, dude's a guru. This is 2014, and he is training Team Elite for the 2016 Rio Olympics swim team. He has countless NFL and MLB athletes. I mean, I can't even name Antonio Tarver, heavyweight champion, boxer. Like, the dude's got experience from professional boxing to baseball to football to swimming at Olympic level, just countless experience. All I wanted to do was learn. I was just so sick of the business. Teach me. So then went down to Tampa, Florida, and spent 4 months from 5 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. just learning. We would train in the morning. So we had 2 sessions that were 90 minutes each. I would either, depending on how many athletes we had, I would be a coach on the floor, or I would be just a team member, part of the team, training partner, and he would give me the most expensive athlete, which a lot of the times was Antonio Tarver when he wanted to show up. I got some fun Tarver stories. We can save those for the end. Any professional boxer, dude, wild. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
I'm sure.
yeah, so that was the training. And then we went into the classroom, and he would just do these phenomenal master classes on the whiteboard, and I would take the best notes. Now the most valuable possession I have is my notebook from that, because I have the lectures written down, the notes. My only professional regret is not recording those lectures. Just even the audio is so rich, because I was absorbing what I was ready to absorb at the time, even though he was, spitting 100 miles an hour during those sessions. So from there, we got a lunch break, and then we went and trained at the pool. I also had to learn how to freaking swim. This is no joke. Had to learn how to swim to keep up with the athletes that we were training at the pool. So this was either at the open water swim. He had open water swim Olympians or pool Olympians. And I had to drown proof. There is such thing as drown proofing, and we did that training. But even just in the laps pool, I was performing drown proofing every single day. So then we went back for the afternoon session and had afternoon athletes. These were youth. They were out of school, just coming to train for baseball. Lacrosse was big at Tampa back then. So all these different high school athletes. And so I'm learning, okay, water versus land. Okay, military, he's got this. He's either a veteran who's missing this limb and he's still training with us, or he's a current Green Beret operator. What are we going to adjust the program for them? Then there's swimmers. Then there's baseball guys. Okay, how are we going to adjust this mindset philosophy? And now we get into the developmental stages of youth athletics. Well, we know our goal. Now we got to analyze them and get them to be as awesome as the people we had in the morning session. Dude, that was 4 months. I was way in over my head. That was the richest. I've learned more in 4 months than I could have in 4 years of college. But I was there for it. And so that set the foundation. We had weights, but there was a lot of just manipulating the body, finding different ways to gain and target athleticism, the mental and emotional connection to an athlete. I credit a lot of that I know now to Raphael. And it was an awesome experience. A podcast with him, it's episode 50, I believe, on Captains and Coaches podcast.
Okay.
Where I sat down with Raph for 2 hours. This was last June, and just reminisced. Now pulled some fun stories out. It was awesome. And I referenced that. I referenced a lot of movies. So that experience, it was like Batman Begins, where it's Ra's al Ghul, and I'm just there as freaking Bruce Wayne. Dude, I don't care. I'm burned by society. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Teach me.
Right.
And man, I just so grateful for that. And then Raph calls it a pipe pledge. And I had to sign this as a coach and an athlete. But that's professionalism. That's IQ. That's the presence, your presence as a coach. And then EQ, your emotional quotient. So now I do a lot of teaching on the emotional quotient and connecting with athletes because it's a lost art. We are obsessed with programs, but people are not programming. Doesn't matter what you do on the program. How can I pull my athlete into this and get them to move with intention and buy-in? And I don't need a barbell. We can just accomplish so much with a PVC pipe, a couple hurdles, and a partner. So that I owe a lot to Raph. Then, dude, from there, just hit the ground running in my career, traveled to 6 continents. I present all over the world, then basically teach people how to teach people to lift weights, run fast. Doesn't matter the sport. I speak all sports so I can make a connection between what we would do in training and your sports. I mean, dude, that's just a glimpse. Entering into my 16th year of coaching and loving every minute of it. I really dive into just love now the teenage age population because, dude, COVID, phones, all that, they're missing out on this social, emotional growth as leaders. And I'm battling the assumption through captains and coaches that sports don't teach lessons. Coaches do. So how do we connect and make sure that lacrosse, baseball, football is the vehicle for them to gain confidence and the ability to go lead in whatever the next chapter is, because everyone's athletic career ends. What lessons and confidence and leadership tools are we gaining that we are taking into our next chapter in life?
I love that. No, and you have such a unique journey, and I think we covered a lot of bases there, which is awesome. I really love you going through each kind of sector of your life and led to now what your mission and values are and what you're trying to accomplish. Now, I'm going to take this back kind of to the start, only because I want to ask you with your perspective of growing up in Texas with that Texas football culture and mindset. So I'm from New Jersey, much different. I didn't really grow up with the pressure of like football is life, right? Like I took to baseball very early and that was my thing. And I kind of gravitated towards that, but I didn't really feel like a pressure to play another sport, if that makes sense. Because football is prevalent, but it's not everything, if that makes sense. And obviously Texas high school football is everything. Now, looking back on that, I'm sure you've reflected on that at this point in time in your life, but what did that pressure kind of do for you as an athlete and then as a person now? What was the impact that that had on you as you developed through your athletic career and now your coaching career?
Yes, to explain that impact, you have to understand there's a lot of pressures from parents as well to push you into that sport, right? The perception, and I'm living in that small town still. I love this culture where I love to battle this culture. I'm not going to love this next line I'm going to say, but where dad feels, hey, football taught me to be a man. You're going to play football because it's going to teach you to be a man. That's pushing the responsibility of the home into school and sport. The challenge there is school assumes you're getting it at home. Home assumes you're getting it at school, and the kid is just, they're left out to dry. So that kid that's just left out, that's my experience. So child of divorce, moving around, mom works, where I get the opportunity to actually have camaraderie is going to be through athletics. So that's main reason I went all in. I joke 5'7" genetic trash can, like I'm not going. I can't even play D3 football. I'm lucky lacrosse is not that big. All these are self-deprecating humor because that's the style I'm used to. So now where I had coaches who were stepping into parental roles and role models and leaders for me, but then they turned their back on me in an attempt to keep their job. So now I'm left out into the wind. And fortunately, through my teams and amazing parents, great team moms from my dudes that were able to do lunches, dinners, you name it. I mean, road trips, travel. Galveston's a beach down here, and it's not an awesome beach like you have on the shore, right? This is disgusting tar sand. It's not a water you go into. You go and you hang out at the beach house. You don't go to the beach. So,
Okay.
yeah, just great families that help support that. So there's a lot of dudes like me that just get left behind, and they are then behind social, emotionally, they're getting the physical development and the expectation. And I still see this to this day. Dudes that are breaking the 6-foot barrier, dudes that are just tall, genetic, they look old, but then where are they developed mentally, emotionally? They're still trapped in that 8th, 9th grade mind and body because they didn't have a toolkit or a person to help guide them and mentor them through this and hold them responsible. So why I like that high school age group is you transition from having fun in sport, is being with your boys and playing grab ass, to then actually being good in competing. It just takes a little bit more time for that switch to go off for others. And then the challenge here, and this is observational, the kids that the switch goes off earlier, they need to grow up because they don't have the support necessarily at home. So the type A's, from my experience, the more mature they are, they had to do that because home wasn't there. So they were buying into this behavior change, like, well, I need to succeed at this, which is acknowledge me. I need to do more of that. So then it just starts to build this perception of perfectionism that I got to be perfect. And guess what? It's reinforced by the coaches then. Guys, be more like Tex. He's doing everything right. You guys need to be more like him. Little do they know, I'm freaking falling apart inside, and just the only positive thing I have is what the barbell is telling me, because I'm losing a bunch of football games. And then getting reminded every single day of why I turned it into self-deprecating humor, of why I can't do this, of why I can't do that, of why I'm failing. Because that's what the football coach is telling me. And he's the only authority figure I have in life right now. So now that becomes my tale and my story. And the only solution, the only tool I have as an athlete is to work harder. So now I'm just going in the drain. Fortunately, great friends, great parents outside. And then when I get to college, I was extremely fortunate because my freshman year, who recruited me, we had this dictator type coach who was that he was a Yale grad. He was the type AA, NC double asshole that just killed the team to make us better. I was used to that. I thrive in that environment without support and keep constant reminding of how much I suck. I'm great in that environment. The rest of the guys, not so much. They stayed with our team and we were trauma bonded together. They spite played. There's a lot of people that spite quit. I hate coach. He sucks. Well, now a lot of our dudes, their switch flipped because they didn't want to prove him right of what he said about them. So now they're all in, and we're still incredibly close, standing at each other's weddings, tight knit group, love each other very much. But that was brought together by another transactional coach, very asshole. So unbeknownst to us, he left after my freshman year to go take another job, and he didn't recruit past my class and dug us into a hole. And then now I'm a sophomore without a head coach. We're scrambling and looking because he left us at a unfortunate time where every coach has a job at this point, even assistants. And I mean, you can't move your family. So then we hire a 28-year-old high school lacrosse coach who was an alumni of Marymount University, and I'm on the hiring committee, team leader. So now I'm again in adult situations as a 19-year-old that's just ready and trusted by the athletic advisory board, whatever it was that put me in that position. So now I become fast friends with this guy. I'm 19, he's 28. We all want to succeed and win. So now I get the opportunity as one of his first team captains to work with him. We did hire him and build a program, a foundation from nothing, because we were tanking, we were going down. And his name's John Reynolds, and he's still there today. So that again, 20 plus years in a job, you're doing something right. And it started with our office time, our connections. And dude, honestly, that's the origin of captains and coaches, is my relationship with Coach John Reynolds, because he had so much faith and trust in me as a leader and a connector to the team that we could create a culture from nothing. And then it's still in place today. So again, I was mature beyond my years. I was ready to take on this, and I needed it. Give me more responsibility. This is where I feel I can make an impact. And Reynolds was geared up and ready to go. He wanted to win and succeed because the rest of the country didn't believe he was the right fit for the job. And we would schedule top 20 programs, Gettysburg, Hampton-Sydney, Lynchburg. And then, to quote Reynolds, we would go to these lands. I'm going to mess this up. He quoted this on my podcast. He would take us to these unholy lands and just put us in these positions for us to build that armor and toughness and learn how to compete. We didn't win a lot of those games. We did beat Hampton-Sydney, who was 13 at the time, but it prepared us now for the future in life where we have those stories and travel. So now it wasn't a cupcake schedule. It wasn't super all fluffy. It was, no, dude, these were the best places for me to compete as an athlete. I'm going to put you in those positions. We're going to go to those universities, and you're going to have a great time. Still to this day, my favorite place to play as an athlete is Lynchburg College. They have a bunch of dorms around the field. They have a track around the field, and they allow fraternities just to put couches on the track, and you are getting heckled and screamed at right in front of you. It's awesome. So, I mean, it's tough. I can't hate the culture of Texas football, because in a sense it did make me who I am. But at the same time, I had to fight and build those tools without a mentor. And there's plenty of nights and plenty of times where it's just like you believe all the negative stuff because you don't have another voice that's reminding you or teaching you how to manage that. So now a lot of my lessons are just, hey, here's tools how to battle when this inevitable voice comes in. Oh, one of your teammates is pushing back. Okay, here's a toolkit to how to manage that, so that way we can continue down the road. There's a phrase I love. It's post-traumatic growth. All of these negative things that then I worked through are now lessons that I'm handing off, because I know there's other people going through this at the same time. Dude, it's sports. It's toxic. It's negative. There's so many assumptions that if you play, this will happen. No. Go after those assumptions. Okay, if we play and get into that scenario, here's a toolkit to learn how to go through it. And dude, you see this with conditioning. Last example is conditioning. Coaches just want to burn you. They want to run you into the ground, but they're not teaching you how to navigate that up here. And now coaching high school lacrosse, I give my guys, hey, there's 4 different types of conditioning that we're going to do. There's one for your legs. There's one for your lungs. There's one for your heart. And there's one for your head. And I have the different running techniques, and it's just, how am I leading it? And letting know, dude, today's a heart day. I'm going to run you into the ground and find out who you are today. And more importantly, you're going to find out who you are. You're going to find out who you are. So it's just aiming to give them the tools, and it's calling out poor posture, resting on their knees, hands on their head. How are they talking to each other if it's difficult, or some guy does get to a jog and he's not finishing through the line or touching the line? how are the leaders calling them out? Is he jumping on them like an asshole? Or is he, hey, touch the line, come back, let's go? Or do they finish the run with them, right? There's always a kid that finishes last. And I also ensure that there's always a winner in a drill, loser. So we learn how to lose and get freaking pissed off about it. So we come back and push harder and learn how to win versus just being labeled a loser like I was.
Now, I think your coaching style that you've kind of described is very representative of the experiences that you've had and what you've learned from. And I'm going to reference one of our mutual connections, Vinny Maltz, who I know was on your podcast, came on this podcast. Awesome dude. He's the best. But I just watched him speak the other day at our other mutual connection, CJ's place. And
Yeah.
he brought up two reference points that you speaking really aligned with that I loved was we can hold a very high standard for people and you can push people as hard as you want, but you have to love them hard as well. So what does that mean? It's not they fail and you go, oh, it's okay, it's all right. But what it is we're going to put an expectation and a standard. Like you said, there's 4 different types of running, but the level of love comes from what you just said. I'm going to test your heart today, but I'm right there with you every step of the way, right? We demand this level of excellence, but I'm with you the whole step of the way. Every part of this, I'm going to be with you. The other aspect he talked about was everyone says, like, trust the process. And this is a really big thing in baseball and skill development. It's like, trust the process, trust the process. Like, if you're in a throwing program, just trust the process and you'll be good. But you have to develop a level of trust in order for people to trust your process. There is that level of connection that you talked about. It's growing with that. Now, my next question aligns with this coaching style that you've now kind of developed and grown into. So you've referenced like creating these leadership skills for captains, for coaches, and expressing the different ways in order to get the best out of people and try to, lead men in your situation in lacrosse or lead women in lacrosse teams, whoever you're working with. Now, how do you help develop leadership in captains and coaches? Because I feel like the experiences that I've had, especially high school or college, someone gets named a captain, but there is no playbook as like, how do you become a captain? It's just here, you're named captain. Now, as a captain, it's like, what do I do? What changes? How do I present myself? Like, how do you as a leader try to help those coaches and captains become the leaders that you want them to become?
Great question. So right now, my goal is to create self-awareness. And I lean a lot into child development. And there's different stages of this. I'll reference just 2 for the answer to this question. The first is going to be what's known as social emotional learning. And there's different stages of this. The first is self-awareness. So I need to realize the gap in my leadership abilities. So what I do with the team captains is I have a leadership questionnaire. So there's 13 characteristics, and then I have them self-assess, and then I have their co-captains assess them as well. And the goal of that is to identify the leadership gap. If some guy feels that he is really awesome at this, and then the rest of his teammates are like, bro, you're talking and nobody's leading, that's a problem. So now it's being clear as possible. I don't say, say that Brandon said this about Tex. I just say, hey, your teammates said this. So I want as clear as possible because it's going to turn into a fist fight, knowing a lot of just high school dudes. So it's creating that gap and then making them aware of it, but then giving them tools. So I print them out and I have like a nice folder with weekly lessons. So at the front is their self-assessment and their peer assessment. And then, okay, here's the gap. And by this stage, dudes have found their natural roles. If we always do a big circle before practice warm-up, and it's the same guy leading that circle, which I'm not mad at. Let's give the other guys an opportunity to grow and step into that position. So then it's, okay, give them points in practice for them to practice what they suck at. And I'll quote Vinny here because he said this so well when I interviewed him, is we want to give them the opportunity to lead. We build practice plans to build these specific skills, but where in our practice plan are we providing opportunities to learn how to be great teammates, build leadership? So Vinny was referencing being a good teammate when he said that. Where are we giving them opportunities to be good teammates? And his worry is a lot of these individual athletes that are gained skills with individual coaches then go back to team practice and are jerks. So what opportunities are we giving them to work on being good teammates? So that self-awareness gap, Then I give them tools. Okay, at this moment in practice, this is your chance to lead. And we got 5 practices a week. So then we just alternate. It's like written into the program. Okay, Mike, you get Monday's huddle. And then during our full field team drill, John, you're going to take the leadership this. No doubt on Monday, it's going to be slow, just knowing the good dudes and knowing Mondays, right? So now it's 5 different points throughout practice where we need someone to step up instead of me just as a coach being like, captains, where are we at? What are we doing here? Or team's not doing it. Blow the whistle on the line.
Yeah.
I hate trading skill work for conditioning. Many different reasons, but our skills fall behind, and that's not good. We got practice plans. We got different points we got to hit throughout the season to compete. So now it's self-awareness and then social awareness for them to get opportunities to practice these leadership reps. And this is during practice. Now, SEL, I talk a lot about social emotional learning. I call it social emotional leadership. The lessons that I'm teaching through this, child development, elementary school would be social emotional learning. I'm acknowledging that and then just saying like, okay, well, at age 7, where we're supposed to learn interdependence, where you and I are teammates and my performance relies on you and your performance relies on me, something happened. And that's why this kid is an asshole at 16. It's because at 7, his parents divorced. Something happened that he missed that lesson in elementary school. So that's a lot of the stuff that I'm anchored in. The next child development reference I'm going to make is a man named Piaget. So this is from the 60s, developmental psychologist, and he breaks our brain development up into different stages, 0 to 2, 3 to 6, 7 to 11, and then 12 plus. Now, we as adults, when we go to teach, could be leadership, could be baseball, could be anything, we often default to teaching the kid what makes sense to us. Okay, this makes sense to me, so I'm going to teach it like it makes sense to me, to you. That's common. The challenge is these kids, depending on their age group or their life experience, they're in a different developmental stage of their brain. So if I'm meeting them in adult brain, we're going to have a disconnect, and then I'm going to get mad at them as a coach for not understanding. Okay, so what stage are they in? I need to understand this. And here's a wrinkle to that. While I understand the developmental psychologist Piaget, he went in this linear progression. From my experience, when we're learning different skills, we actually default to go back. We revert in progression. We could be awesome at pitching. I'll use batting as an example. Dude, we can be one of the best in the world at batting on the right side of the plate. But now go to the left side. Feels so uncomfortable. It's awful. It's so bad. I'm never going to do this again. And then here's another funny story. I also grew up across the street from Lance Berkman, who's got the most switch hit home runs. Future Hall of Famer, awesome. I hope. Yeah. I hope to get him on the podcast. Just wild story. He's the nicest man in the world. He would just let my friends come over and tell us Astro baseball stories. So, dude, just cool. A phenomenal human being. He had 4 daughters, so I think he's like, dude, I need some testosterone over here. Anyway, the development of where I spent a lot of time in teaching, phase 3, that's that 7 to 11, that's concrete thinking. 7 to 11, for the most part, how those kids are learning skills, they can't foreshadow. They need to be thinking right in front of them. So if we're teaching a drill, we can't be teaching 2 drills ahead. This is exactly what I want from you right now in this drill. Okay, hit it. And then we do the drill. And then the next drill, okay, this is exactly what I want from you. And us as coaches, especially if you're listening, you're a baseball coach or a strength coach working with kids, I can't expect them to remember 7 to 11, remember the name of that drill and what to do. Every time it comes up with this age group, I need to reteach it so it's right in front of them. The next phase where it's 12 plus, now we get into this decision making where I can read a play on the chalkboard and then go run it. I can recall the names of drills and what the setup and execution is. So now we can stack and learn to build skill on skill with that age group. Now, me as a high school lacrosse coach, I get a bunch of dudes that were cut from baseball, cut from basketball. They're playing football and lacrosse, or their buddies are having fun and they're just going to go start playing it. Well, they're really good at those other sports or have a base level, a concrete understanding of fundamentals and what to do. So they're in phase 4, but lacrosse is new to them. So I need to teach them in a very concrete manner. Okay, here's how you set up on a throw. And I just keep it simple. point your shoulder, step, throw. Or if they're a baseball player, dude, shooting is just like a crow hop from the outfield. How did you get the ball from center field to home plate, right? You step forward with your foot, you crow hop, you step behind, and then you get a big push and heave it. Do that shooting a lacrosse ball. So I take their concrete understanding of sport and I just connect it to lacrosse and then just hammer the fundamentals until it just becomes second nature. And now I can integrate thinking and strategy. Where coaches get pissed off is when they're trying to teach them in this phase 4, but they're at phase 3, just mentally and physically with new skills. You also got to understand, hey, when my heart rate is jacked, I'm super tired. Guess where my brain defaults to? Back to concrete thinking. So I, as a coach, need to know that. I want them, and this is where I say the conditioning for your head, and this is where I use tools to, hey, focus. Let's get right here. So now we're practicing focusing, and I'll explain a couple drills that I do for that momentarily. So now it's knowing, okay, when the going gets tough or they're super tired, I don't want them to freeze or I'm not going to get mad at them. I need to put in a play that they've done 1,000 times. It's concrete thinking. Now, when they're super fatigued, I'm gonna lead them from the sidelines. Hey, pass down, pick. Hey, pass it here. This is open. Now, Jimmy, cut. So now I'm leading them in a concrete example because they're freaking tired. It's the fourth quarter, and I just need them to keep their ears open and their eyes up. So that helps keep your blood pressure down as a coach and manage the expectations of your athletes. Is expect them to revert down when they're tired. If they're learning a new skill for the first time, don't hold them to a phase 4 responsibility and aptitude because they're learning in a concrete manner. And then allow them eventually with a good night's sleep where we go through 3 brain cycles and then skills get baked into our myelination, our coordination. Then I can hold them responsible for not remembering this stuff. So it's balancing all this, and your team is going to be a bell curve at all times with new guys or guys that, hey, they're just not coordinated and gifted athletically. They're going to probably stay in concrete for a long time. But I can teach them to be great teammates like Vinny talks about. I can have them show up in great attitudes and, man, just bring it every single day. And they accept that they're a role player, but, man, they love their teammates. And we see this at college level a lot. Dude, you're a role player. When it's your responsibility at practice, you go 100 miles an hour. This is Rudy
Right.
Rudiger 101. There's a place for those guys if I acknowledge and treat them with respect and give them expectations. Dude, any practice player, you are a concrete thinker, and that's A-okay. Do this. That's exactly what I need you to do because you're on scout team, dude, and you got to show us this look. That's not a time to get creative. That's a time when you make the, line 2, 3, and hopefully, awesome. I saw flashes. You're going to be in line 1 soon. So it's balancing a lot of that. And I didn't know this. It took me years to understand this, and actually took an awesome year job. A kids franchise brought me in to help build their coaching technology and just dove into child development. And, man, I was reflecting on my own life. I was reflecting on coaching high schoolers where I had conflict and frustration. It's like, well, dude, at 7 and knowing these families, at 7, this kid went through a violent freaking divorce. Now he's 16 and we're seeing that emotions are high, testosterone, hormones, and we're seeing that inability and fission just show up in his brain. He's not pushing back, being defiant. He's pushing back because he trusts me and he's looking for boundaries. He's pushing back, trying to see that somebody's there that cares. And that's important for coaches to realize as well. If you start to see kids act out, they're actually searching for boundaries and they need you more than freaking conditioning at that moment.
We want to take a quick second to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, New Jersey. Whether it's picking up a snack between games or picking up a party tray for the big game, the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton has you covered. For all of your pretzel needs, make sure you stop by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, located on North Maple Ave. Let them know that the ARC podcast sent you. Now back to the episode.
Yeah.
No, I think there were a lot of great takeaways there. I think you dove into a lot with kind of the self-awareness piece and the development of your players and working as a team, like you said, and giving them a system in which they feel comfortable in and meshing together, right? Which is awesome. And I think, like you said, everyone comes from a different background, and something that you grew up with that you might think is normal or was your normal can lead to something down the line that might, like you said, push away from someone a little bit because they're testing the boundaries a little bit. It leads to a bunch of different people. Now, I'd love to ask you, it's kind of a two-parter, but they're a little bit intertwined, so bear with me here. So we started with the self-awareness piece, right? And kind of how that begins everything, that kind of starts the fire for all of the rest of like the leadership skills and as we develop. Where do you think most players that you've worked with miss the mark as far as their own self-evaluation when it comes to self-awareness? Like, where do you see people maybe overestimate themselves or underestimate themselves in areas? And the second piece of that, because you also brought this up when talking about fitting in a system, working with teams, understanding your strengths and weaknesses. With this self-awareness piece, how then do you help as a coach athletes build confidence that isn't necessarily just outcome dependent, right? Because again, you might be in a system and like, listen, I have played on many baseball teams in my career. And when I went to college at first, right, I was a starter in high school, and then I was out of the bullpen my freshman year. And my identity in my head was, wait a minute, I'm a starter. What are we doing here? Like what blah
Hmm.
blah blah. So the outcome wasn't necessarily what I wanted, which then my identity at that time kind of shifted and blended. My confidence kind of faltered a little bit. It's like, well, now who am I? What can I do? So I'd love to hear from your perspective, right? With the self-awareness piece, where do guys either overestimate or underestimate themselves a little bit as leaders? And pairing that together with how do you breed athletes to have confidence even when it's not outcome dependent?
Great question, dude. So now we're stepping into my wheelhouse, and I'll say this: we need a baseline, and I say level set on skill set. You got to know
Okay.
exactly who you are, so
Yeah.
that way you're
Yeah.
willing to receive coaching. Because if you're too high, coach doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not going to listen to him, even though his best interests, for the most part, are in play. And then there's also too low. So now if coach says, dude, you're awesome, man. I can't believe I've never seen a fastball like that. Nah, there's no way. I don't believe him. So now I'm not willing to listen to him. So when he gives me corrections and cues, it's like, dude, yeah, but I'm a loser. I'm still down here. So now our objective as coaches is every single day is to get them level set on skill set. And dude, you know life. You're feeling up, you're feeling down. But our objective within sports and skills is to get to the point where we can receive coaching. And it's going to change every single day. And this is why relationships are so important. So now for the too high, these are my favorite kids to work with because I got a whole toolkit of movements that are very humbling. And
Yeah.
I've been burned 1,000 times because one or two things happen. Number one, there's an external force that is just telling them, and I call it fantastic lies. They are God's gift to baseball. They are amazing.
Yeah.
You are going to go pro. You're going to be the next Vanderbilt starter, full scholarship. Well, cui bono, that's Latin for who benefits. Those fantastic lies, they're usually travel ball coaches or
Yeah.
individual coaches that are cashing bigger checks for 1 hour session that I'm getting paid in a season. So that needs to be broached as the formal head coach of you need a relationship with that coach. You need to understand what they're saying. Hey, send me that program. Or do you have 10 minutes to talk? Hey, here's what I'm seeing. Can you work this skill into your sessions? Because he needs this for his team. So now I'm trying to bridge the gap between the private coach and the travel team. The challenge with travel teams is they're just getting swings. They're not taking batting practice. So they're getting reps in games. Maybe they get 4 at bats, but they're not training. They're not taking 15 ground balls. Maybe they get 1 a game towards them. So that's not improving skill. That's a whole different conversation. So now I need to talk to those travel coaches and say, hey, he needs to work on this. I know you're playing him at shortstop, but my vision for him is or we want him at shortstop because he's the best player on our team. I know ball. You're playing him at left field. He's not getting any better. How can I get him into the infield? Because that's what's going to help his high school team this season. So now we're trying to bridge the gap there with that person. And if you ignore it or paint the picture of that person as an enemy that's painting fantastic lies, they're more likely to believe that person because it makes them feel really good and it protects them from our next thing we're going to introduce, which is ego. Now, Pat Riley, I got him in my wall of fame right behind me. I model my hair after him on the sidelines. What do you think keeps it up, Slick? So now he calls ego edging God out. And I mean, this man him and Phil Jackson have managed the biggest egos in the sport of basketball throughout their careers, from the Lakers to the Knicks for Pat Riley in particular. So edging God out. And a lot of his philosophy is fighting away from what he calls the disease of me, the disease of more. So now we won a championship. I was a role player last year. Now I'm more experienced. I want more playing time. Okay, well, your skills are not where our starters are, but you believe they are. How do we manage that? So now I love to use movements and measurements to show them how accurate they are. Not a shot clock, radar gun. A radar gun,
Yep.
that doesn't lie. This is clear data. So we have a radar gun, whether it's shooting a lacrosse ball or throwing a baseball. We also get the opportunity to now use movements. I like isometrics. So pillars, holding these pillars. If you can't do this for 30 seconds, dude, you're weak. A side pillar, 30 seconds to a minute. Well, I can't expect you to take on and brace and protect yourself from contact in sport. You can't hold this for 30 seconds. It could be physical or it could be mental. Either one, now we're chipping that ego down. Dude, you may have a fast shot, but you're also 120 pounds. You're going to get beat up. You're not even going to get an opportunity to shoot until we put on some muscle. So now we're using physical and the scale as a clear measurement to try to bring that ego down to a place where they're going to listen. And it does take time, and you can't shame them into listening. You can't cast them off and label them as this kid is not coachable. You, coach, just haven't found a way to connect with them to get them to believe that you care. So now the more challenging, I like the more fun is high ego. The more challenging is the negative self-esteem. This is where relationship building really comes into play. And the scale, the barbell, the clear measurements that are battling the shame lies that the kid is telling themselves, that's what you need to bank on. My words are not going to be enough to build them up. It needs to be internal and belief. And this is why I love the weight room. And Henry Rollins has an amazing quote where the iron never lies. 25 is always 225. People will lie to you. Iron never does. So now, and I say this every single day that we go into the weight room, strongest men in the world start with the bar, so do we. So everybody gets reps at 45 pounds, and then we just tick up and we're tracking our max set for the day, and then just do a linear progression if they're in high school. And now we're going from, squatting 3 sets of 5 at 100 to 105 to 110. And if I got them for 4 years, that adds up. And so over time, over 7 weeks of squatting twice a week and adding 5 pounds to the bar each session, you just got 70 pounds stronger in your back squat. A lot of that is coordination based, but at the same time, dude, there's no lying. And every single one of these kids has a notebook that they're tracking those weights. And so if they're having a bad day, let's go back to December of 2024. Let's go back to, whenever. And so the iron is the opportunity, I feel, to bring up self-esteem, and we're creating a healthy relationship with hard work, fitness, strength training, stuff that when their athletic career ends, they're going to lean into a lot. And you and I know this because we're in the profession of getting people to buy into weightlifting because it's done so much for us. So now it's helping us hand off. And I tell the sport coaches I'm with, let them catch the bug. Like, it's going to be hard until they catch the bug. And now I don't have to keep motivating them to show up. And bar tolerance. The bar hurts my spine. Okay. And then calluses. I was joking with one of the other coaches about calluses. When I was a freshman in high school, I was asking my head football coach about calluses. And because, I wasn't aware. And he's like, okay, here's what you do. You go home. Don't clip this for the podcast. You can keep it in there for the long form. Don't make this a social clip. So head coach was like, you need to go home. And you need to ask your mom if she's got Vagisil, and you just rub it right on those. They're going to go away. I'm an idiot. So yeah, you know where that story goes, but like, he was deadpan trying to joke. And I took that seriously because, like, oh, this man's trying to help me. And it never ended well. So calluses. And then this is a quote that I gave CJ's boys when I was talking to him. And CJ, it
Okay.
works into his coaching vernacular now, but we need calluses socially and emotionally as well. We need to understand who our teammates are and our boys. And this is going to help raise that self-esteem to the level set. If you know who your boys are, you know who to trust. And the tool that I give to build self-esteem is, I love 90s basketball. This is going to be a brief Barkley story. So I try to tease them and candor and joke with them about stuff that is not true. Small calves, for example, if there's a kid that's got nice, formative, developed calves on the team, I joke with him, he's got small calves. Give him a hard time about it because it's not true. So now the Barkley story, he was a rookie on the Philadelphia 76ers, drafted, and on the end of the bench at the twilight of his career was Dr. J. And so Barkley, real passionate, emotional guy. We still see it to this day in his clips. He would read the newspaper, the sports page based off the game the night before, and get frustrated and flustered at these sports writers who never played a game in their life. What do they know about basketball? They're telling me about my game. And he'd get frustrated. And so then Dr. J was seeing this in that rookie year and seeing it. He's like, dude, went back and they looked through one of the articles and be like, is this true? And Barkley would be like, no, but he said, is it true? So if it was true about Barkley's game, then he took that and turned it into something he focused on in practice and now developed into one of the top 50 greatest basketball players of all time. And part of what we see when he's on TV and commenting on players, he is truthful. He is very direct and honest about what he observes. And guess how people choose to take it? What is he talking about this? Or they can focus on that and be like, I need to work that into my game. So I take that for small stuff because other players talk trash. I need to build calluses around them socially, emotionally. So then when somebody else says something in a nefarious way, you need to ask yourself, is it true? If it is true, okay, dude, we're going to work on that in practice. And the next time you see them, either next year or the next time we see him in the playoffs, he thinks he's got you, but we got him. So we can turn it into something. But if it's not true, you are not going to respond. You're going to laugh it off like you do with me. You can fire back at me. I got plenty of stuff. I'm 5'7", right? One thing I can't fire off is I'm still strong as, all else. So I will say that. I got him there forever. But that's an example to help give them tools to battle self-esteem versus me just telling them, hey, dude, you are great. That's not going to work. Tool to build and believe me when I tell them. And believe it or not, it comes through trash talk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think you were talking about the journal and like not journaling to a sense, but like writing down your weightlifting programs, the weights that you're building up to, the way you feel. I've actually implemented with the pitchers that I throw with now, that I work with. We use a throwing journal. And what we do for that is a self-reflection piece. And I say, write in the journal as much as you want about everything, every thought that you have. Obviously, after a bullpen, sometimes if you're a high-intensity guy, there are 3,000 thoughts that went through your head, right? And it's write down everything, right? Write down everything. And then I say, now think of it as a thought funnel. Now, what I want you to do is, what are 2 things I did really well today? Then what are 2 things that I need to improve on? What can I get better at with the bullpen that I just threw? And then the last thing is 1 actionable takeaway that I can do tomorrow in order to improve this and get better. So that's something with the self-reflection piece you kind of addressed and talked about that I've started to implement. But my other piece of the question that I kind of want to ask you and go over with you is, you mentioned this earlier, and I think it blends in very well with what you just described with the intention. You said intention very specifically, which I have just started thinking. So recently I've been getting back into my pitching coaching, like working with pitchers more one-on-one in groups and sessions. One thing that I've noticed people are getting really good at in today's day and age is the intensity piece. Everyone can throw a baseball as hard as they possibly can. Everyone can do all these different things to the 110% ability that they have as far as like effort goes. So they're like, here we go, here we go, here we go. The other thing that's necessary with that intensity piece is intention. I think it's really important. Now, as a pitcher, what am I trying to execute right now? What is the intention with this pitch? I had a kid the other day. He threw a curveball and it was nasty, but it hits the plate. And catcher goes down and blocks it. Nasty curveball. Any situation,
curveball hits the plate, that's right where you want it. Unless it's like an 0-0 curveball, you want to get right over the plate. But besides that, in any count, I will take that curveball night and day. The kid apologizes to the catcher. He's sorry. And I was like, sorry? Why are you apologizing? He's like, it skipped and bounced. I was like, what's the execution of what we want a curveball to do? He's like, well, we want to create that movement pattern off the fastball, correct? And where do you want it in the zone? Lower half of the zone. Where was it? Lower half of the zone, and then dropped off. I was like, we need to understand what the intention is, not necessarily just, I'm going to throw this curveball as good as I can for a strike, right? We have to understand what the intention of some of these pitches are. Once we start to get too fine into the intensity aspect, it gets a little bit crazy. Now, from your perspective with lacrosse and weightlifting, obviously there's a lot of transferable skills and movement patterns and stuff when it comes to that. What do you see when it comes to intention versus intensity in the weight room and then on the field when you're working with your lacrosse players?
Great questions. I would reference, this is known as the competency model for the people that want to look up what I'm about to say. So there's 4 levels of competence that our objective is for athletes to get to. So level 1, they're taking on that new skills. I'm coaching them in that concrete mindset. It's unconscious incompetence. You don't know how bad you really are. You get it's called Dunning-Kruger. You think you're really good at taking on all this stuff, and then you actually try it, and it's like, crap, this is more difficult than it looks. So you have zero idea of what your skill level is, unconscious incompetence. Then the more practice and swings you take, or if you're learning a new pitch, intention leads you then to conscious incompetence. There's that awareness gap. You know how bad you are at this, but you have good coaches in there. And based off maybe, hopefully, previous athletic experience, the more you practice, the more dialed in a skill gets. From there, it gets to conscious competence. Now I'm focusing so intently on the movement pattern and executing it. Now, from creative sports like basketball and lacrosse and soccer, that's slow. If I'm thinking so much about what my body is doing, I don't know for baseball here, but if I'm thinking so much about my body is doing, I'm going to be a step behind and not reading the defense or reading the play or reading what the field is giving me. So our goal is just keep practicing, get enough reps that it becomes unconscious competence. Now I know exactly what my body's doing through space. I don't have to think about my feet. I don't have to think about my grip, my stick. I mean, we see this in lacrosse as a great example of my eyes are upfield. I get it passed to, and I just catch it right here and move it along. I didn't watch the ball into my stick. It was just 1,000 reps of me reading that. Maybe it's baseball of the arm slot. You've done it 1,000 times. Oh, I can see that. I'm just going to swing away, quoting signs. So now the opportunity is, it just needs consistent opportunity, good feedback loops from coaches, and our goal is to get to unconscious competence so we can learn the new skill. Okay, we got footwork. Now we're going to work on patting our head and rubbing our stomach. Challenging. Or chewing gum and walking. I've worked with some baseball guys. It's really difficult. So now that intention, it's good to a point until it becomes the detriment. Then you get into the yips and the spirals, and I'm thinking too much about thinking of what's going to happen. You are caught in conscious competence. So it's just playing loose and being free. The hay's in the barn. You've done this 1,000 times. That'd be an example of trust the process, is referring back to the thousands of reps, dude. Just go have fun again. Go play. So where our work is focused, is dialed intention, I want to play loose. I want to play fast. That's the goal. And a great football term is hay's in the barn. Dude, all the work is done. We're just showing up. Where practice was so difficult, games are going to be easy. So the competency model, I would aim to coach within whatever phase they're in. And these are the questions that I ask for the feedback loop. So now if I'm asking an unconscious, incompetent person, how did it feel? They're going to be like, I don't know. Okay. So now I can target focus with unconscious incompetence. Hey, what were you aiming for? Well, I wasn't aiming. Okay, well, that's our first step. I want you to pick which corner of the goal to aim for, and you're focusing on that. Okay. So rather than just glazing over, so now I'm bringing intention to it. Okay, here's a target you're aiming for in that particular movement. Now we get into, and that brings us to the next phase, and you'll actually see, this is pretty cool. You're going to see the kids when they break through unconscious incompetence, they don't really understand or value coaching. But when they start to say, hey, coach, look at me. Coach, how was that? Well, you broke through into the next level of connection into conscious incompetence because they want feedback. They're motivated by it. So now, okay, now I can start to get into how did it feel? And they may not have an answer for me, but what's my objective? I need them thinking about how or feeling how their body is moving. They're consciously trying to do that crow hop on a shot versus just muscling it through. No, let's get a big twist in our body and use physics to our advantage. So what do I feel becomes that next level question because it's going to drive intention so we can get to conscious competence. And then conscious competence, I'm trying to get them out of feel. And then there's coaching research on this, internal versus external cues. So I'm leading them with internal cues through conscious incompetence to conscious competence. But if I stay in internal cues with conscious competence, that's when I'm forced to get that overanalyzer, overthinker, the yipper.
Right.
So now I changed my coaching language to external cues. So this is going to be push, drive, and use your coaching, for example, think about one word cue that you gave a guy before the next pitch. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I can't pitch. So there's external cues that were the cue given to you that is intentional. Maybe now I'm thinking of, dude, I want pop, give me pop, whatever that means. So now they're thinking about something externally versus what's going on in their body. Because I want to get to that unconscious incompetence. If they're still thinking about their, Dontrell Willis freaking high kick routine beforehand, I want that to be unconscious competence, and their focus is only downfield at the little box they got to get it into. But if they're thinking about their kick and motion and doing whatever, I'm just thinking all the Astros pitchers. I do love baseball.
Yeah.
I think it's Vasquez, who's now a Tiger, unfortunately. He does this weird rock motion and then gets set and go. So yeah, I don't want them thinking about that pre-pitch routine at all. They need to keep their focus on field, but how I speak to them through these different phases of competence needs to change. There's no one way to do things. But now as he learns a new pitch, I'm back to the concrete coaching. I'm in here and work their way through. So that'd be my guidance there.
Yeah.
I'd also, for you, record your sessions and then just think about what cues and knowing where this kid is in his phase of learning. And then does your language intentionally match his intention as an athlete?
I'd love your opinion on this too, because this is another thought I had speaking about cues. Because obviously I think cues can be extremely beneficial, but now can you over cue someone? And what does that look like? Because I sometimes feel myself like I try to be very aware of the cues that I give, but at times I do feel myself in my head. I'm like, I think I just cued this guy to death. I gave him a bunch of cues that, now he's thinking about some things that I don't really need him thinking about right now while he's throwing, right? Like, what does that look like? And maybe as someone who's trying to help a coach, maybe not cue as much in that sense, like, how do you determine how many cues are enough or how many cues are not enough? That type of thing.
I'd default to Nick Winkelman, who's got an amazing book called The Language of Coaching. I got it on my shelf here. Phenomenal educator, presenter, coach, human being. So Nick's got it. It's called Rule of One going into the next rep. And then he calls it coaching in and coaching out. Coaching in, I give the rule of one. Coaching out, you got to find out if that cue worked or not. Did they focus on that? What was their attention on that? So coaching in and then coaching out, following up on that cue if it's a correction direction. Now, what to say? I would argue going from the ground up. Because if you fix footwork in sports, whether it's shooting, baseball, anything, that's going to cause a lot of the up-chain squatting, right? Olympic weightlifting. It's going to fix a lot of the up-chain mistakes that the athlete's making. So we would triage from the feet up, in my opinion, and that may fix whatever the hell else is going on. I mean, if we're talking about Olympic weightlifting or squatting, we can write a full dissertation on all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's going to blow them up. So let's just give them one thing to work on. And I just work from the ground up and then use the competency model to determine if I'm using an internal or an external cue, or just trying to build a relationship with the kid and make them have fun and fall in love with baseball. Because if you're in, you're in. If you catch the bug, it's going to be easy. If you don't, man, I'm going to be pulling you along. It's going to be a long season. If dad's just dropping you off, this 60 minutes is going to feel like 2 hours.
Correct. Okay. No, I appreciate that. And I like that a lot because I think that has been my objective now when I work with pitchers in drill work. A lot of the things that I try to focus on is if we're going through a drill, I try to give them one cue or one thought about the movement pattern that they want. And I do agree, even though it might not seem like it, obviously you're well versed in the movement patterns in this area, but pitching starts from the ground up always. And a lot of the deficiencies that you will see start in the lower half and it builds up to everything with the timing of the arm action, your arm path, the way everything works together, the way that your hips and shoulders separate. So everything starts from the ground up. So most of my cueing starts from the ground up, like you said. But when we get to the bullpen, the actual bullpen, most of the time I say clear it, just throw to your target and throw through it with as much intensity as we're designated for that day. So it's kind of clearing the thought process. It's all of the cues that we had in our drill work that we used for whatever drill or movement pattern we needed should be able to just go over to the mound. We clear it and we just compete. That's the focus, is just competing on the mound.
Yeah, I love it. Breathe through your eyelids. How often do you use that one?
Yeah, I like that a lot. Breathe through your eyelids. That's great. That's awesome. Tex, I think now would be a perfect time to dive into our Fast Five segment. I alluded to this with you before. It's 5 rapid fire questions on mental performance in sports. Whenever you're ready, I'll shoot them at you and then we'll go from there.
Ready.
Awesome. Let's do it. First question. What part of your identity did sports help you discover?
I would argue leadership, just the opportunity to allow my experience to be listened to. Team captain for 3 years, and I had no place of doing that in my own opinion. But then my teammates voted me into that position, so they allowed me to believe in myself. And then I had 3 years, was a lead by example, and then my really loud seniors would graduate and eventually grow into a position, linear progress my voice and confidence in that role. I couldn't just be trapped in the lead by example. My team needed a vocal leader, and I had to evolve into that. So now that's agnostic of my skills in the sport. Dude, my stats are not going to get me in the Hall of Fame. I had 2 players on my team that were in my school's Hall of Fame. Phenomenal ceremony, great time, as much fun as we had in college. But this is a great representation of that. My university just had its 75th anniversary. So while I'm never making the Hall of Fame, I was nominated as one of the top 75 students, not just student athletes, 75 students for the university in its history. So that is something that I feel good about. I hate talking about myself. It feels like that because I talk so much on this. It doesn't feel like that because I talk so much on this podcast, but that was a meaningful moment of like, dude, I did make an impact on my community.
Right. No, I love that answer. That's awesome. And congratulations. That's an awesome honor. That's really cool. Question 2, looking back, what moment felt like the end for you, but just ended up being a new beginning?
Dude, I just did a podcast on this. So breaking my leg 8 days before the first game of my freshman season. And that slowed everything down because it allowed me to learn the game of lacrosse versus just playing football with a stick. It also, and I didn't realize this at the time, 3 years later, it took me 3 years to realize the gift that extremely depressing moment was it allowed me the opportunity to go to grad school. And I did not believe in myself enough to do that. So that was it. The gift of injury, to quote a book by Dr. Stu McGill, that's what it was.
Awesome. Number 3, when everything around you is chaotic, what's one habit that brings you back to center?
Well, life is chaotic. So just knowing that I can be the stoic person in that moment. So the analogy I would give is, life is a sailboat, and we can't decide which direction the wind blows, but we can adjust the sails. So if I'm captain of this ship, then I'm going to model, if it's for my team, I'm going to model the attitude, the level that I need them to be. So it's constantly reminding myself also in life when negative things happen and I'm not around my team, okay, how would I coach one of my kids through this? And then I take on that mindset and get into the zone to take on this opportunity and to move forward there. So it's adjusting the sail, being cool, calm, and collective in the moment, and also thinking, how would I coach somebody else through this particular moment?
Awesome. I love that. Question 4. What belief about yourself did you have to unlearn in order to grow as an athlete or a person?
Shame. I joke all the time. I'm a recovering Irish Catholic. Chaotic environment where shame was the motivator growing up, and you were not allowed to rock the boat, to use another boat analogy, or
Yeah.
else. So that created, and I developed a skill as a young man of hypervigilance, hyper awareness of my environment, where I could read people because I didn't know who was showing up that day. Are they going to blow the whole thing up, or are they going to be nice to me, or are they just going to, best case scenario, just ignore me so I don't have to deal with this? So now I'm able to read that environment, but now I use that superpower for good. 50 kids, see which kid is off, and then go find out what's up. Where a default for a lot of coaches is to just pal around with the best dudes on the team.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep.
Who needs me today? So reading the room and going and checking in of what's going on there. So yeah, that hypervigilance. I mean, you're living in fight, flight, freeze. So now just get centered and use that as a superpower. And again, I referenced comic books before, and I think that's a valuable lesson for coaches as well, is that all these negative things that happen to you and happen to our superheroes, our favorite heroes, they learn to turn those into their strengths.
Right. Yeah. Now, I love that. And I like the perspective that you put as far as coaching goes, where it's who needs me today, not I'm just going to work with the best guys, like you just said. I love that reference. That was awesome. Then, last question, number 5. What does success look like for you now versus when you were an athlete?
Man, that's a wonderful question. Now, success to me looks like who these dudes are in 10 years than getting 10 wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who freaking cares? Teach them how
Right.
to compete, teach them how to win, teach them how to lose, teach them who they are. And then my favorite thing about living in a small town is I go to a coffee shop, do work, and then Easter break, dudes are coming back from college and they're with their families, and dads are giving me a firm handshake, moms are giving me a hug, and then the dudes are just telling me, catching me up on life for what they're doing now. And I've sent plenty of kids to Division I scholarships, but it's the other dudes that just, they go on to amazing universities that are very difficult to get into, and then they're the leader of their fraternities. They've got travel abroad, just kicking ass, doing jobs to work abroad and navigate life out there, and then coming back into the small town. They're not hating this place. They've broke free, but then they come back and still find value. That is success to me, is what lessons, maybe they didn't like me then, and I aim
Yeah.
to be as respectful as possible on the field. But like, oh man, yeah, I remember that time. Because all my high school coaches, they're all caricatures. And my high school buds, we just make fun of them whenever we get together. Now I'm aiming to just be a moment. I have plenty of one-liners in the back pocket and aim to tease and joke with the best of them, candor all day. And at the same time, still thinking down the road of how can I teach them to just take on some conflict that I know is inevitable and be who they are confidently to take on that big wave that's in front of them.
Love that. That was very well said. That was awesome. And I appreciate your insights and taking the time to come on the podcast and sharing everything. Tex, seriously, this was awesome. It was great. I think there were a lot of great takeaways. Your journey is very unique. And I think you sharing your perspectives along the way really paints the picture as to why you're doing what you're doing today and impacting, so many different people. So I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and having this conversation with me.
But dude, thanks for the opportunity. I know we got mutual friends, so that's always fun to just discover other cliques, dudes that are doing great things, and we're all aligned, which is beautiful because there's a lot of negative in sport out there that's real clickbaity or looks good, and there's still a lot of good people out there that are, and the tagline for captains and coaches is raising the game. And you're one of those dudes. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that seriously. But Tex, thank you so much. Maybe drop on here where everyone can find you, and obviously the Captains and Coaches podcast. Give it a shout out and where you can find any of the episodes.
Yeah. All the episodes are on all platforms, super easy to find. And I encourage you to sign up for the newsletter that I got, newsletter.captainsandcoaches.com. And so then this is weekly insights. Hey, what am I discovering with my team? So I just write some discovery, just those light bulb moments that go off in practice of this clicks, this doesn't click, or interactions with other programs, seeing like, whoa, that's going on over there. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Here's why. And
Right.
share some research behind it. And then, yeah, share clips from the podcast as well in that. And that's the best resource. And then I do have education online. This is new course just put out. So why they're not listening, coaching the modern athlete and building that bridge of connection. If you want to check that out, the first lesson is free. And it's a fun one. I give real life examples and stories to lead off with that. But that's at listen.captainsandcoaches.com. So those are the best resources. And yeah, dude, podcast has just been so much fun. You know, you discovered one organically, which is always cool for me to learn.
Right.
And yeah, with Coach Jay Johnson at LSU baseball, I'm
Yes.
so grateful he even opened up the doors for me. So that if you're into the podcast game, clearly if you made it this far, you like podcasts, check out the interview with Jay Johnson. And I think it's episode 86.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that was an awesome episode. I really enjoyed that one. And Jay Johnson's, a legend. So that's so cool that you got to be in there and have those conversations with them. So that was awesome. But Tex, again, thank you so much for coming on and appreciate your time. And again, all the listeners, I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
thank you.